My next guest is a former prize fighter, and he is the head coach of the Lamb Striking Academy in Fort Worth, Texas. He's the man known as Mr. Durwyn Lamb. I call him Coach D, and he's back with me again for the second time. Coach, welcome back. It's always an honor to have you on the show, sir.
Thank you, man. It's an honor to be here as well. Thank you for having me.
Well, first things first, September 9th, we got a big fight night coming up. You are involved with a new promotion. It's called the F3 League, and it's backed by UFC veteran Steven Peterson. I was hoping we could start there. Can you tell me how you and Steven linked up and this whole Fort Worth versus Dallas thing that you guys got going on?
Yeah, pretty simple, man. I got my promoter license, been having it. We started doing a lot of the exhibition on the ground scene, and we finally got our license to do stuff, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Just taking my time to make sure we do things right. And Steven, I've been knowing him a long time. I've always been kind with me, been kind with him, been friends, and we decided to link up and me, him, and my other business partner talk about us doing some things together. Being that we have a license, he has his company FF3 or FF deal, and then we have Lamb 4 Promotion. So we decided to collab together and put some shows on together, bring our brains and our collaborations and our stuff that we have, our talents, decide to bring together to come under this banner for these shows.
Is there more pressure, Coach D, when you're involved in a new promotion? So I know that you have your own thing going on. I know that you guys do boxing events all the time and your own separate thing. Now you bring in Steven. Now you're putting on a different set of fights. And, this is something that in your community, a lot of people are going to be paying attention to. And, like, is there pressure to make sure that you guys are delivering on a great night of fights for the fans?
No, there's no pressure. I just try to do things the right way, take one day at a time. We plan everything out, have meetings, talk about it. I've been in the game for a long time, so I've been around a lot of promotions from Bellator to UFC to all of them, even HBO boxing. I've seen a lot, been learning a lot through the years, paying attention. People don't know this, but we had a promoter license about 10 years ago. Me and my old partner, we was under North Texas Ultimate Fighting, and then we had Phalanx Amateur Combating. So we've already done 3 shows before, like around 2011, 2012. So I have some experience there. And so no, just long as we do things right and be patient and by the book. That's why it took so long for us to get the license, because we wanted to make sure we did everything right and make sure when we did finally put a date up that everything would go well.
Can you tell me, sir, a little bit about who are some of your fighters that are going to be competing on September 9th that we need to know about?
Well, some of these guys are all kind of like up and coming amateurs and stuff. A guy named Hunter Fink, he's a kid to be looking out for. He's going to be pretty good. And got a kid named Tyler Anderson and a kid named Jacob Lacey, LeBret Watkins. These are the newer guys, man, that are coming up, that are all the new amateurs that I'm gonna be looking. I'm kind of excited to see what they do with their life, with the fight life, because they got some good talent.
It's a really interesting dynamic when I think about coaching because good fighters aren't necessarily good coaches. There's like a big difference there. And I was hoping you can elaborate on that for me and explain just what does it take to be a good coach? Like, what are some of the traits? What are some of the attributes that you need? Because again, you could be the best fighter in the world. That doesn't necessarily correlate into being the best coach in the world.
Mm-hmm. And vice versa too. There's a lot of not so great fighters that end up becoming great coaches, and like you said, great fighters that don't become good coaches. To me, a good coach is somebody that it helps to have the credentials and the longevity of martial arts skills. That helps a lot. But to understand the game, to understand the game is a big thing. To study the game, to understand the game, to even actually been I think it helps also to have actually been a fighter, so you know what it feels like to coach and how to articulate certain things to a fighter because you've been there. But with that being said, all great coaches, some of them weren't fighters, just people that were students of the game and learned the game. and you have to have the spirit to do that, because some people make good coaches and they can talk and make good motivational speakers, but can you reach the fighter's spirit? Can you reach their spirit? Can you reach their heart? Can you reach their talent? Do you know how to separate each fighter individually, and being able to relate to that fighter individually as a human being and as a person? And that's what makes a good coach, is being able to spiritually get involved with that person and that fighter, and on top of having the learning the game and having the credentials to do so.
When I think about fighters, I have this analogy in my mind, or at least this theme in my mind. It's if you're not evolving, if you're not getting better, then that means you're getting worse. I'm curious if it's similar in coaching. Like,
Yeah,
if you aren't evolving, are you dying?
yeah, you are. The problem with a lot of coaches is that they get their ego, and a lot of times their vanity and pride gets above themselves, and so they believe that they don't have to be taught anything. I've been in martial arts off and on for about 37 years, combined with boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, karate, taekwondo, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu collectively all together. And I have a pretty solid understanding of this game as a coach, and God has blessed me with a pretty good intellect, but I never close my brain and I never close my mind. I do know a lot, but I never close my brain and I never close my mind off to what could be possibly something that I can learn and something better I can do. And instead of open my mind to evolve if that needs to be.
When I think of the biggest coaches in MMA, I think of like Eugene Behrman, I think of Henry Hooft, I think of Ray Longo. What makes those coaches elite coaches? Why are people in the media talking about those specific coaches over and over and over again? I know there are way more, but like, what is it that separates a good coach from an elite coach?
Well, there's a lot of elite coaches out there. What happens with guys like that, the ones that you name, um, they've had people that help them spread their name too. When you got fighters that stick by you, stick with you, believe in you as a coach, and take you with them, take you to the spot, and give you that worldwide exposure that helps. And then that person tells that person, and then you got guys coming to that coach because he's got the word of mouth of being a good coach, because he's got the exposure. See, exposure means a lot to coaches. Exposure means a lot. And all it takes is to have that right exposure and those right fighters and those right people that put you up there on those platforms, that speak highly of you, that tell everybody what you got, and then their credentials, their credibility. So at first, their credentials, if they have those credentials and maybe their own background of fighting and their own martial arts and stuff, helps with that, and then it builds from there. It's exposure.
One of the things that's really fascinating about where we are at this particular point in time, like when you think back to when you were a young fighter and just what the fight game looked like, in the 90s versus today, here we are 2023, almost turning the calendar over to 2024. There was no such thing as social media when you were a prize fighter. Like you had to take your flyers and staple them to telephone poles or go to 7-Eleven and maybe tape up your flyer in the window and hope people show up to your fights. Social media didn't exist. Nobody had computers. Now it's never been easier to promote yourself as a fighter, but at the same time, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do that. I was hoping you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that I think social media is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. I think that if your intention is to do right by it and do good by it, then then that should be, I think that should be the idea of where to go. I think that you know, your skill set should show more than anything. And if you're posting videos and posting stuff like that to market yourself, make sure you're doing it to represent yourself in a manageable way. Unfortunately, we live in a world where people like the heels, they like the negativity, they like that stuff. That stuff gets more clicks and more likes and more drama and more things than the people that wants to do the right thing, than the quiet people. You notice that the guys that are really good fighters, really great fighters, if they're not talking too much noise, if not saying much, they kind of fly up under the radar a little bit. Unless you have that superstar power like Sean O'Malley or Conor McGregor or these kind of guys. But also, they also had to get on the internet, play this character, do some things to get to where they are now. You know what I'm saying? I just tell people don't lose yourself in the process. You know, that's the biggest thing is you can get on there, you can do some fun things, you can be cool, but don't lose yourself. Make sure the main thing is that the main task is building your skill set, becoming a champion or whatever goals you have, and also making sure that your character is good and that you continue to be a better person. That's the main thing.
When I think about prize fighting, whether it be boxing, kickboxing, MMA, people like me, people on the outside of this, we only see what happens on fight day. We're not there every single day in the gym. We don't see the training. We don't see the sacrifice and dedication that all these fighters must have in order to perform at an elite level. Can you tell me, like, I'm sure over the years you've had a lot of kids that show up at your gym. They're like, "Man, I want to box or I want to get into MMA." But before you can even lace up a pair of gloves, before you can like earn that right to make a walk, like there's like a list of like non-negotiable things that are required. And I was hoping you could maybe share with me what are some of the things on your non-negotiable list? Like what are the things that any one of your students must do before they earn that right to make a walk?
Yeah, just be all around fighter. I mean, train and complete their tasks at everything. You know, if you're going to be an MMA fighter, you have to learn how to wrestle in defense. You have to learn grappling. You have to learn how to box. You have to learn how to strike. You have to get your cardio up. You have to be dedicated. You have to be consistent. Um, I've been I've made issues. I've made mistakes in the past. When I first became a coach, I was a young coach, so I've been coaching 20 years now. And I was a young, excited coach, and I kind of lost sight of things. I would let people kind of just come in the gym, do what they want to do sometimes, and those kind of things ultimately hurt them. And so I had to start tightening down and buckling down when I start getting my name bigger and start taking coaching seriously, and also wanting these guys to have a better chance and making sure that they were healthy. And if I wasn't being honest with them and not telling them that you're doing the wrong thing or you need to be doing this more, then it wasn't helping them. It was hurting them. So you actually hurt the fighter more when you don't give them these lists of things, like you said, the non-negotiable things. It hurts them. So yeah, it is. It's you have to show up to the gym. You have to be there consistently, you know, and it has to be not just consistent for a month or consistent for 4 weeks. It has to be a long consistency of months and training. And I got to see that. I won't at this stage of my life, coaching career, I won't even entertain people. I've had hundreds of people that say they want to train and still do in my inbox every day. But I tend to not pay attention as much because I'd rather people show me better than they can tell me. So you can show me with your actions and not with your mouth. The mouth can say anything, but the actions show.
When I think of Lamb Striking Academy, aside from you, there's one name that comes to my mind right away. It's Kevin Fernandez. I've been watching this guy fight from his pro debut. I've watched every single one of his fights from that Manuel Medina fight a couple years back to now most recently. I can't put into words like what it is I see. I just know that he's a great fighter and he's continually getting better. What makes him such a good fighter?
Well, I've had Kevin since he was about 14 years old, and he doesn't he doesn't have a lot of so many outside distractions going on to mess with his life, and he's dedicated. He's probably the most intelligent fighter I've ever trained, and dedicated. He stayed with me through thick and thin, and to be frankly honest with you, he's probably the main reason why I'm still coaching today. Otherwise, I almost started giving it up for a long time. But when I saw how loyal and dedicated he was, even when things got bad or other people left or people turned their back or whatever, he never did. So because of that, I stayed with him. What makes it a joy coaching him is that I don't have to worry about any outside stuff, drama, toxicity, um, backstabbing, anything weird. Just he's quiet. He comes in the gym, he trains, he does his job, he works hard, and he leaves. For me, that's any coach's. type of dream to have somebody like that. So of course I'm gonna be dedicated. And the reason why a lot of these other fighters get to have me as a coach now is kind of because of him, because I would have probably almost gave this up a long time ago. But a guy like that will be a world champion because it's in his mind, it's in his spirit, it's in his system. He has a warrior spirit. He has a fight. He has the spirit of a fighter and a warrior. And that's what separates him from a lot of people, is that not letting a lot of the outside distractions get to him and get in the way of what he needs to accomplish. You know, when he was younger, he had his moments where he would show up, you know, strings for a long time, and then he'll take a couple months off. That's, as a coach, that's expected too. You're going to see that. But he's been really consistent, and he's an all-around fighter. That's what makes him good too, because he can wrestle. He got jiu-jitsu. He can box. He can kickbox. He's got traditional style. So he's not pretty weak anywhere. And he's not really weak anywhere. And more importantly, he's strong here. That's what makes him separate him. To me, out of my 20 years of coaching, I've had a lot of talented guys that come in my gym, and really good guys. I've had 3-4 people in the UFC, but he's by far, to me, the best one that I've ever trained.
One follow-up question about Kevin is he's lost one time as a professional, and when people encounter that first loss, it's like, okay, well, this is either going to be something that enriches the fighter and they're going to be able to use this as like a teaching moment and really evolve their game. Others, it seems like they get jammed up mentally and then they almost degrade in the cage. But Kevin's looked phenomenal since the loss. How did he respond to that? And can you tell me a little bit, like behind the scenes, how he rebounded from falling up short a year or so ago?
Yeah, so that fight, we initially took the fight and then said no. So then, because he was injured and he healed up pretty much, so then it came back to the table, and we just reluctantly we decided to do it. I'm glad we did, because there was a reason for it, and he had to cut a lot of weight, you know, for that fight, and he was really injured, so he didn't get to train really. We don't make excuses, but this is the true fact. And so we went in there, and I thought he still did well considering. And I believe the fight still could have went either way, in my personal belief. I believe that guy is not better than him. I think he's fought some other tougher guys, but I think that considering that we took the fight, we didn't take the fight, and then we got back on it, and then the injury, and then the cutting weight, and not being able to train properly was the ultimate thing. But he still went out there and took the fight and fought well. But that loss didn't sit well with him, and because he's a mental giant, is what I call people like that. He processed that and didn't want that to happen again. And so he decided to even work harder and add more to the game, like strength and conditioning and other stuff like that to the game. So I'm very proud of him for taking that initiative on himself, you know, because you can want it for him, but you can want it for him, but they got to be able to take the steps themselves. And that's exactly what he did.
When I think about you, I don't necessarily think about coaching right away. I think of somebody who's an entrepreneur. I think of somebody who's a motivational speaker. I think about somebody who's very involved in your community. I was hoping you could tell people what are some of the things that you have going on outside of coaching right now?
Uh, well, we still like implement programs, life empowerment programs within the school system. I've linked up with guys from my past to go talk to the kids in the schools, elementary, middle school. Um, I'm in the process of writing a book right now about my life, and then also another book about the coaching life, um, podcasting, things like that, man. Those are the stuff that I really want to focus on, and just really helping the young people and helping the youth not make mistakes. I go to a lot of these underground. There's a movement going on called "Put Down the Gloves," put down the guns and pick up the gloves. It's kind of where this underground boxing movement came from. So I'm big heavy in that. Um, Doing that stuff has lowered the crime rate tremendously, and I linked up with some guys that does underground boxing scene, and we've all came together to bring Dallas Fort Worth together, bring the guys to fight together, and come together as a group and team, and see these guys come in the ring and fight each other and not beef afterwards and not shoot and not take it to the streets. I'm really dedicated to the community, to the young people what I'm really, really big on right now.
Well, I did want to share with you from a personal note about me. I don't really talk about myself on here very much, and that's kind of by design. But I will tell you my personal life. Lately, I've been encountering like a lot of adversity, a lot of problems outside of this whole life that you guys see. And I see what you've been saying on social media a lot. Like you go out there and you'll say something about like, you need to protect your mental health, you need to protect your peace, you need to cut out toxic people from your life. And I was going through a tough time, and I remember I was feeling down about myself, and I saw that show up on my feed. And I was like, "Oh my God, he's like absolutely right." So I personally, even though I've never met you in person, I've heard some of the things that you've said, and I've applied those to my own life, and it's made a huge difference in just my day-to-day happiness and just going about my life as a husband and as a father and just trying to be a good person, right? So that's been a huge benefit for me, and I just wanted to share that with you. And before I let you go, I wanted to give you an opportunity. Like you're a very powerful man, you're very insightful, you have a lot of wisdom that I benefited from. So if there's like a message that you have for the world out there right now, like what is it?
Well, I want to say this. When I speak on things, it helps me too. So it keeps reassuring me as well when I say these things, and it kind of boomerangs back to helping me. Um, I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes in my life as well, but I'm always about the spirit of redemption and always redeeming myself. And I've heard one time somebody say, "You're always living in redemption. You shouldn't be living in redemption." Well, we always are always living in redemption. All of us are broken at some point, and all of us have our broken moments, and we all need to be healed and need to be fixed. And healing is not a thing that happens 100%. You're going to always continue to heal. That's why you can't rely on your own understanding. So you're always forever healing, and we always got to continue to do that. And all I say, the message is that no matter what nobody says, or no matter what you even feel about yourself, sometimes just to never give up on yourself. Things are going to get tough. They're going to get hard. They're going to get sometimes where you just feel like giving up. They're going to get confusing. You're going to be at home sometimes wondering, man, how am I going to make it? How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And the biggest thing I say is just keep doing it, even through the pain, even through the hurt, even through your own problems, your own struggles. Just keep fighting and keep waking up and keep walking. I learned that the only way to the destination is to keep walking. On that way to that destination, you might fall, you might trip, you might get dehydrated, you might hurt, you might get lost, you might get off the route, you might get off the scenic route, you might go to a scenic route. But at the end of the day, long as you keep walking and keep stepping, there's a factual thing that you will get to that destination. It's when you stop or try to turn back. Never turn back and never stop, even if it's baby steps. Those baby steps will continue to be bigger steps. Sometimes during that journey, you're going to take smaller steps. Sometimes it'll require you to take bigger steps. But the thing is, as long as you keep stepping, and as long as we keep stepping, we'll get there. Uh, we need to be building what I call our spiritual muscle. That's what we need to be building, our spiritual muscles and our spiritual character. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to fall short. You're going to sin. You're going to be talked about. These things are going to happen, but none of us are exempt. Not one person in this world is exempt from going through trials and tribulations and falling short of God's glory. None of us are. So I think we have to be more sympathetic and more understanding and more have more compassion to our fellow men. But as far as personally, we just keep stepping. No matter how hard it gets, we just keep stepping. And that's the biggest message I have, is to keep going.
Coach D, I appreciate those words of wisdom. I do appreciate your time this afternoon. I wanted to ask you one final question.
No problem.
Fort Worth, Texas, that's where you're based out of. That's where your gym's at. How can people get a hold of you and how can people join your gym?
Um, well, you can follow me on my Instagram page at Durwyn Lamb 4, and then my business page and promotion page at Lamb 4 on Instagram. And you can follow my page on Durwyn Lamb on Facebook. And then coming to the gym that I'm with now, ACES, at 1768 Mall Circle. Come by, holler at me, man. I'm an open book. I know a lot of people hit me up, but I'm one of those guys that I get a lot of people that message me. But I'm one of those guys that try to respond to everybody. Even though I have a lot, I try to be personal with everybody, and I try to make sure you can reach out to me personally, and I'm sure that I'll respond to you. It might take a couple hours or maybe a day but I will get back to you. So just know that.
Coach, I appreciate your time. If there's anyone you want to shout out or thank before I let you go, let's do it.
Yeah. So a shout out to you first, and Mom Basin. Thank you for the opportunity and allowing me to be back on your platform. And I want to give a shout out to um, my personal Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for believing in me and being there. And shout out to God and my family. Shout out to everybody that's around me because God's blessed me with great people in my life. And I've been blessed to have beautiful people in my life. So I want to say thank you to all those people that are in my life. Everybody knows who you are. And to my son, and then for being a good kid, and to my daughter, my 6-year-old daughter that God has blessed me to um, be in her life, to raise her and help me teach, learn different things. So shout out to that, man, and shout out to the world. I'm praying for everybody and want everybody to do well.
Thank you, Coach T, for your time. I look forward to having you back very soon, sir.
Thank you. God bless you, man. Thank you.